Ukraine, 2024. A truck pulls off a dirt road into a tree line. The driver cuts the engine. 3 men climb out. 40 seconds later, 40 rockets leave the launcher simultaneously. Each one is the size of a telephone pole. They travel at 690 meters per second. At 20 kilometers, the salvo covers an area the size of 16 football fields in a blanket of high explosive. The truck is moving again before the last rocket lands. The entire operation, from stop to drive away, takes under 4 minutes. The weapon that just did that was designed in 1960. It costs $15,000 per salvo. It has been fired in every major conflict on Earth for 60 years. Its name translates simply as hail, and it is the most continuously used weapon system in the history of modern warfare. Before this video ends, you will understand why the BM-21 Grad has outlasted every sophisticated replacement the Soviet Union and Russia ever designed for it. Why armies that hate each other, Israel and Egypt, Ethiopia and Eritrea, Russia and Ukraine, all operate the same weapon simultaneously, and why a system that cannot hit a single specific target has shaped the outcome of more battles than any precision weapon ever built. But here is the detail that should already be forming. The Grad's greatest strength is not its firepower, it is its mathematics. And those mathematics make it one of the most terrifying weapons a human being can face. The Soviet Union developed the BM-21 in the late 1950s to replace the aging BM-14. The requirement was blunt: deliver overwhelming firepower to a brigade-sized area in the shortest possible time. 40 122mm rockets on a Ural truck chassis, each carrying a 6.4 kilogram high explosive warhead. The complete salvo fires in 20 seconds. In those 20 seconds, 256 kilograms of high explosive and 35,000 steel fragments are delivered to 145,000 square meters. Every square meter receives, on average, 1 fragment capable of penetrating 8 millimeters of steel. There is no cover in the open. Survival in the kill zone during a Grad salvo is largely a matter of chance. The first combat use came in 1969. Not in Vietnam or the Middle East, but on the frozen Ussuri River between the Soviet Union and China. Chinese forces had seized Damansky Island and were holding it against Soviet counterattacks. At 17:10 on March 15th, a battery of Grads opened fire. The bombardment lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, the Chinese positions on the island had ceased to exist as organized fighting positions. The survivors withdrew. The Soviets retook the island. The after-action report noted that the Grad had achieved in 10 minutes what 3 conventional infantry assaults over 2 days had failed to achieve. That report was read very carefully in Moscow, and in Cairo, and in Tel Aviv. October 1973. Egypt crosses the Suez Canal. Israel mobilizes. Both sides have Grads. Egyptian Grad batteries fire on Israeli armored concentrations. Israeli Grad batteries fire on Egyptian bridging operations. The same weapon, both sides, simultaneously. This is not an accident. It is the defining characteristic of the Grad's career. By 1973, the Soviet Union had exported the BM-21 to 35 nations. By 2024, that number exceeds 60. When 2 countries go to war anywhere on Earth, the probability that both sides have Grads is extremely high. The weapon became the artillery equivalent of the AK-47, ubiquitous, reliable, and present on every side of every conflict. A battery of 6 vehicles can fire a complete salvo and be moving within 90 seconds. At highway speeds, this means the battery is 8 kilometers away before any counter-battery radar has processed its firing position. The Grad does not need to be accurate, it needs to be gone. This shoot-and-scoot doctrine is why the Grad has remained lethal against opponents with sophisticated counter-battery systems. The Americans in Vietnam had counter-battery radar, the Israelis in Lebanon had it, Russia and Ukraine both have it. None of them solved the fundamental problem. The Grad fires and moves faster than any counter-battery response cycle yet built. Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. Soviet forces deploy Grads against Mujahideen positions in mountain valleys. The Mujahideen capture several launchers. They use them against Soviet positions. The weapon is fighting itself across the Hindu Kush, on both sides of the same war, simultaneously, exactly as it had in 1973. By the end of the Soviet-Afghan War, the CIA has documented Grad systems in use by at least 7 different factions, some fighting each other with identical equipment captured from the same original source. The simplicity that made the Grad exportable, minimal training requirement, basic maintenance, commercial truck chassis, had made it impossible to contain once it entered a conflict zone. Grad systems captured in one war became the starting inventory of the next. The specific terror of the Grad is not the explosion, it is the sound, or rather the absence of it. A full battery salvo of 240 rockets produces an acoustic signature survivors consistently describe as unlike anything else in warfare. The incoming rockets are supersonic. The first indication is not a warning sound, it is the simultaneous detonation of the first rounds. The sound of the rockets follows 1 second later. You hear the weapon after it has already killed. Units subjected to Grad bombardment consistently report severe degradation of fighting capability beyond what physical casualties alone explain. The impossibility of response is the weapon's second warhead. Ukraine changed the Grad story in one specific way. Ukrainian forces deployed counter-battery radar combined with pre-positioned artillery and drone packages, with response times under 2 minutes. Russian Grad crews operating with 90-second displacement protocols found themselves targeted before completing the move. The solution? Longer range positioning, firing from beyond radar range, reducing accuracy further. The Grad, pushed beyond its effective range, became more indiscriminate. The mathematics remained lethal. The targeting became terror. More than 50 nations operate the BM-21 or a direct derivative. China reverse-engineered captured examples from the 1979 Sino-Vietnamese War and produced their own version, the Type 81, which entered PLA service in 1982 and has been exported across Southeast Asia and Africa. Egypt, Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. The list of Grad operators reads like a map of every conflict zone of the past 60 years. In several cases, the same physical launcher has changed hands multiple times across multiple conflicts, accumulating operational history across opposing sides of wars that had nothing to do with each other. There are Grad systems currently in service that were manufactured before the moon landings. The Grad's replacement, the 9A52 Smerch and the 9A52-4 Tornado, are larger, longer ranged, and more accurate. They cost significantly more, require more specialized maintenance, and carry a logistical burden that limits their deployability in austere environments. The Grad, by contrast, runs on standard commercial diesel. Its rockets can be loaded by 2 men in under 3 minutes per tube. Its firing calculations can be performed with a table and a compass. In the environments where most of the world's wars are actually fought, not the European plains for which Soviet doctrine was designed, but the mountains of Afghanistan, the scrubland of Africa, the urban valleys of the Middle East. The Grad's simplicity is not a weakness. It is the reason it is still there. A Soviet rocket launcher designed in 1960, first used in 1969, has been fired continuously in armed conflicts on every inhabited continent for 60 years. More than 60 nations operate it. Opposing sides in the same conflict have used it simultaneously more times than any other weapon in history. It cannot hit a specific target. It can devastate an area. And in 60 years of warfare, area devastation has proven to be exactly what most battles actually required. The Grad is not sophisticated. It is not precise. It is the mathematical expression of the oldest truth in warfare. Overwhelming firepower, delivered fast, changes outcomes. Subscribe. Next week, the weapon Ukraine built specifically to survive the Grad, and why it changed counter-battery warfare permanently.